and women who were leaders in these family businesses printed and published under a male relative's name. Elizabeth Timothy is often recognized as the first female newspaper publisher in America. She worked in partnership with Benjamin Franklin to publish the South Carolina Gazette in the 1730s and 1740s after the death of her husband, who was Franklin's original partner. And was typical of the time, the Gazette was not published under her name, but rather her son's, who at the time was a mere teenager. Imagine that, but legally took over his father's business. Now, one rare example of one who did not hide behind a pseudonym was Mary Catherine Goddard, the second printer to print the Declaration of Independence. Her name appears right under John Hancock as the printer of the document. Now, women still often entered publishing houses as secretaries, lower paying positions with little hope of advancement. And when men entered these publishing houses in those entry level roles, they quickly rose and changed from basically clerical to editorial assistants rather quickly. And it's always been a man's world. But despite these hurdles, today women make up the majority of those employed in publishing, but still tend to dominate in the lower level positions and typically still earn less than their male counterparts. Now, the 20th century saw the transition from women in clerical positions into professional roles, and yet not all was equal. Many women faced wage and other forms of discrimination. It wasn't until the women's rights and feminist movements in the 1970s where women publishers organized to fight for more rights and equality in the workplace. Now, here to give us her perspective is Brooklyn-born Preferred Health Magazine's publisher, no-nonsense editor-in-chief, Angelina Cappiello. Welcome to the show, beautiful lady.
Well, thank you for having me, beautiful.
So now your career is pretty incredible, right? You entered your journalism career just 1 month shy of the tragic 9/11 events at the New York Post. Tell us about how that transpired for you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, who knew, right? This was going to happen. I was, you get out of college, you're so idealistic, you're going to report the truth and crack down on some great, investigative journalism, and you get there and it's, on the topic, it is a boys club. And again, it's just a boys club. I got there thinking I was just going to go ahead and start reporting right away. And half of my job was that because of 9/11 events, and they needed kind of all hands on deck. And so, yes, I was out there reporting on all that tragedy.
And it's interesting because your career has gone from the New York Post. You've worked as a branding officer for B2B and the B2C companies, both nationally and internationally. And then in 2017, you became a publisher at Preferred Health Magazine. But you're also a mom, and your son was born in 2007. Is that correct?
My daughter was
your daughter. I'm sorry. So as a mom, you literally had to take yourself out to focus on your family and bringing up, a child, which is not the easiest thing, and juggling your career. How do you, from your perspective, as an editor-in-chief now of a very large magazine with, an incredible one at that too. You do a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
How do you feel that there is still a discrepancy in the publishing world? And you've worked in all facets, right? You've worked in publishing, you've worked in branding, you've worked as a journalist. What's your perspective on this, where things are at currently right now in the world?
I think sadly that they remain the same. I think women absolutely are still undervalued at the office. And I think there is just a lack of respect for what we bring to the table. Again, it's a boys club. I feel like it's always been, even in all facets of branding and all the different, careers that I've had, and even the careers of my friends and what I've seen, what they're going through as officers or as, women in business, that there is this, kind of wall of silence, between the men, and we come in and we're expected to do the same job at less pay.
At less pay.
Exactly. Less pay. And I just don't understand where that rationale comes in. And I guess, there's a big man in charge, because even in businesses where women are bosses, I do kind of also experience that is the case, where a man might get ahead more quickly than a woman. And when I was a journalist, I actually seen women who were kind of, we all entered in at the same time, say out loud to themselves and to me, maybe I should flirt with, the editor in chief, or maybe I should flirt with this one so I can get more assignments, so I can get ahead. And it just really, it hurt my feelings to hear another woman say that. And it made me just not want to be there. And honestly, I mean, to work for somebody and to have to think that you would have to stoop down to some kind of level and degrade yourself to get ahead, it's a shame.
It's a shame, and no woman should have to ever feel like that. And this is what we do. We fight for our rights. We are not just women, we're mothers, we're entrepreneurs. We have a platform, you have a platform, and you have taken control. And now you are in a position where you are delegating, and you are now doing it the way I'm doing it, where I'm remaining sensitive to everybody's feelings. I don't discriminate between gender. I don't discriminate between race. I don't care where you come from, what God you pray to. Just please pray to a God, right? Be a good person.
A good person, yes.
And in general, I was reading through this amazing career that you've had, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, she's finally at an amazing place in her life. Would you have gotten to that place quicker if you were a man?
Oh, probably. I think, just part of society, as growing up as a woman, that we, have this ingrained, view of ourselves that maybe we are less than because we see what's happening. We're a product of our environment. Everybody is. But as a woman, it's even harder because you're constantly feeling the need to have to prove yourself. And and it shouldn't be that way. Even as little girls, we're having to prove ourselves against our brothers or other people. So it's just it's a shame that it's this way. I think we've definitely breaking many barriers since the 20s, but there's still a long way to go. And I think it's something that still needs to be addressed. We can't forget. The Me Too movement is here. We can't just let it be some kind of trends, and we need it just to continue, and we need to really support each other as women. I think that's what's most important.
And I totally agree that supporting each other, if women stood together the way men did, we could rule the world. That's what I say. Exactly. So definitely supporting and uplifting one another. And talking about supporting and uplifting, you have had an amazing lineup of guests on the covers of your magazines, from Montel Williams to Fran Drescher to Deepak Chopra to you. You have such a great magazine. Now tell us a little bit about your publication and why is it so different than just your average, health publication?
Sure. I mean, listen, it started organically for me. This is something that I did not think I would be reporting on health. Okay. I was a crime reporter for a very long time, even wrote for real estate and other things like that. So I focused in on health more so because I had lost my mother 12 years ago to leukemia, and I felt like there were no real answers. And a fan of magazines myself, I feel that there are a lot of magazines that just kind of litter the magazine up with different, ads and tidbits. And I really wanted to focus in on giving people answers to their questions. Maybe they're thinking something that the mainstream news isn't reporting at the time that I feel is important. And really myself and my staff, we really just kind of take into consideration what is on people's minds and how we can educate them better. And so that's where we're really going. But I did want to bring up one thing real quick on the topic of, this discrimination against women. I had picked up a book. The name of it is Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. And I suggest everyone go get this because it's really based on practical data-driven information about the inequalities, gender inequalities for women, and simplest things. This is the greatest book. You need to pick it up, Sam. But it's simple, about the size of your cell phone to the temperature in the office, how it's zeroed in and based on data for men and not women.
Really? And say the name again.
So Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. The author is Caroline Criado Perez. And this was actually given to me, ironically enough, this was suggested to me by Sarah Chalky, who is an actress you might know of. She was in Firefly Lane. And she suggested this book. And she's in broadcasting on that show, which is great. So it's a kind of comes full circle here, but I think that's a great book for everyone to.
Well, thank you for that. Now, in your magazine, you focus on topics like mob mentality, overcoming anxiety, living with PTSD, addiction, emotional intelligence, and a list of other things. Even talk of CBD and THC and alternative and holistic medicines of sorts. What you have a vast a knowledge that is incredible, because I mean, you come across so much information and data. How do you pick and choose the most interesting topics? And is it something that, what the public wants, or is it a lot of it driven by you internally?
I would say both, because honestly, I think it's everyone, honestly. It's myself, it's the readers, it's the public, it's what I'm seeing that's not being spoken about. It's our staff who's interested in things as well. So it's definitely a collaboration of thoughts and interests that we really want to expose. For instance, with mob mentality, I felt that was something that was really needing to be spoken about, and it wasn't being addressed. Mental health is not always being addressed. For some reason, I feel with mainstream media, it's a constant hush over that topic, and I feel like if we can really just understand why things are happening, maybe we can solve those problems. And that's why I'd like to report on a lot of mental health issues, like you said.
I love that you report on this kind of stuff. And I also love that you think outside the box. When I was speaking to a common friend of ours, Melissa Billy Clark, who was also, I interviewed her. She's an incredible soul. We talked about how I had used cannabis to help me after a trip and fall accident in 2012 where I fractured my face, and I still currently have metal under my orbital and 4 screws down my nasal passage, and I get facial twitches, and so the CBD THC that I use helps with those spasms. And I thought that, look, here we are living in 2021. It's still taboo to hear a mom say, I use THC in any capacity. And so I had another author come on called Danielle Simone Brand, the author of Weed Mom. And she was authorizing moms to inhale. But just like you, having an outlet, a magazine, Preferred Health Magazine is what we're talking about for those of you that are just listening in, is great, because now you are in control of the data that you're putting out. And I feel really comfortable knowing that somebody like you is in control of that information, because now I trust it even more.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
Well, we have run out of time, but I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show. You are incredible. Your career is incredible, and your magazine is definitely incredible. You guys have to check it out, preferredhealthmagazine.com.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams.